for tuning in to Outer Avenues TV. I'm here at China Beach with Nathen Banne. He's a financial planner who lives in the Sunset. How are you today?
Doing great. How are you?
Good. So how long have you lived in the neighborhood?
20 plus years, a little over 20 years.
Okay, right on. Do you surf at Ocean Beach?
That's why I'm here. That's why I moved here.
Yeah. So that's what attracted you to the neighborhood, was Ocean Beach?
Yeah, that was pretty much it. I was living in Pacifica and surfing there a lot and coming up to Ocean Beach, and eventually I thought, I'd rather live there and go down to Pacifica. So when I want to surf in Pacifica. So I bought a place on the Great Highway 20 plus years ago, and I've been surfing at Ocean Beach ever since.
Very cool. How long have you been a financial planner?
Well, more than 25 years. It's been an evolution. I started out with an insurance company a long time ago, and then it evolved into financial planning over time.
Right. And what attracted you to the industry?
Well, to be honest with you, my initial introduction was just I needed a job, but I started out working for a big insurance company, and I learned about insurance products and then investment products, and then I wanted to do more for my clients than just sell products.
Right.
And I heard about financial planning, started paying attention to it. In those days, that was 20 plus years ago, it was still a profession kind of in its growing stages.
Right.
And I was very interested in that. So I ended up being able to do pretty much a holistic practice for clients. And so I could answer questions on most topics, or at least know where to go and get the answer. But I didn't want my clients to have to go to their investment advisor or their accountant or their insurance agent to get an answer. I wanted to be able to provide that information, one-stop shop, so to speak.
Right. So what would you say makes you different from your competitors?
Well, I'm a unique person. That's important. And if someone feels good about who I am and likes talking to me, that's the most important thing. Chemistry is really important.
Yeah.
So if I get along with someone, then we can probably work together. But other than that, I have a lot of resources because I work for a very well-established company, Mass Mutual Life Insurance Company. They have a financial planning division, and that's my department. But I have all their resources, so I have access to products that a lot of other advisors don't have.
Right.
There's a lot of planners out there who are very focused on investments, for example. Well, we have a broker-dealer, so I manage lots of money. That's part of my job, but it's only about 1/6 of my job, managing the money. So I'd say having access to all these resources is super important. And also working for an established company, I think, is good because if I were to just drop dead or be out of work for a while for whatever reason, health, something like that, there are other competent people that can step in. So if I were just on my own independent, something happened to me, my clients would be stranded. So I like working for a well-established company that has a solid gold reputation, and I do have a couple of younger business partners who can step right in if something happened to me, or if I ever decide to retire, which right now I have no specific plans to retire.
Very cool. So I've met a lot of people who prefer to manage their own retirement funds. What would you say that people are missing out on by not having professional management?
Well, the first answer is that people don't know what they don't know, right? So I think I should say this. One of my goals as a professional, as a certified financial planner, and I'll add a values-based professional financial planner, is that I don't want my clients to have to worry about money. I would like my clients to focus on what's important to them. And I think people that spend a lot of time and energy managing a portfolio are just missing out on life. And also, I have a little bit of a jaded attitude about managing money because, I've seen it all in my many years of work in this industry, and most investment decisions are ultimately made by an algorithm. So, I think it's important to have someone you can work with who understands your values and your goals and can, take your mind off that part of your life so you can just do what's important to you and enjoy your life. So I'd say the main thing people are missing out on is that they're probably spending too much time and probably worrying too much about their portfolios. My clients, the ones that, my best clients just never think about money. They just live their life, and you know, I don't charge a lot for what I do. I think it's worth every penny.
Very
That's
cool.
my opinion.
Yeah. So I heard that because of the federal government's response to COVID, 20 to 40% of all the dollars ever printed were printed in the last 12 months. That's what I've read anyway. What impact do you think the increase in money supply is going to have on the average investor?
You know, that's a really astute question. That's a great question, and something that's on a lot of people's minds. And you know, I could give you the answer from the standpoint of economic theory, but in reality, again, for my years in this business, I'm seeing some huge changes. You know, I've seen 3 very serious market setbacks, and I mean, 2008 was almost a global meltdown, and now, of course, we have the pandemic, and ultimately, the stock market seems to have a mind of its own. It doesn't pay much attention to what else is going on. And the most important thing is that the person have a plan, you know, a strategy for moving ahead. Because we're using very high-powered software these days to make projections. And if you put all of your financial data into a powerful software program, like eMoney is one that we use a lot, and clients have access to it as well. You know, it factors in everything: inflation, market downturns, you know, possible interest rates, all this stuff, and they run the plans, you know, literally 1,000 times before we even look at the projections. So if you have a plan like that, you really don't need to worry about what's happening with the economy, because everything adjusts. You know, when inflation goes up, interest rates go up, so you can make more money on your savings. When inflation goes up, eventually people start making more money. But what's ultimately important is your own financial plan. You have to set goals and figure out what you have to do to make those goals, and then the software will kind of help you make modifications, but ultimately you know where you're going, and it really truly doesn't matter what happens out there. Your plan is your plan, and I've seen it work. It just, everything kind of adjusts, and you have your goal, and you get there if you have a plan.
Right. And speaking of inflation, what is your opinion on Bitcoin? Because some people say that it's the new gold.
Bitcoin is fascinating. I've been to some great seminars. I actually have a personal relationship with a guy who invented maybe the only Bitcoin index, the only cryptocurrency index, which kind of measures the performance of different cryptocurrencies. And I talk to him periodically, and one thing I will say that a lot of people may not have heard is that no matter how good, how much a part of our lives cryptocurrency becomes, we will never use Bitcoin for buying groceries or putting gas in the car. I heard this rumor, only a rumor, that Elon Musk, let's see, he's willing to offer a Tesla car in exchange for Bitcoin. I heard that, but that may not be true. But it could be true. But it's probably not going to be used for regular, it's probably not going to replace money. But that said, I personally am investing in an index, but I can't recommend it to clients. It's just too soon, and there's too much risk involved. So personally, for me, it was just kind of a fun thing I did as an experiment, and like going to Reno, I'm not a gambler, but that's about as much gambling as I've ever done, is put a few $1,000 into a Bitcoin index. And I really can't recommend it to anybody, because there's absolutely no way of knowing what's going to happen with that. So I don't recommend it to clients. It's not part of the portfolio. But if someone wants to go out and just open up an E-Trade account and buy some Bitcoin, you know, more power to you. I want to say one more thing about that. It's very, very important. Okay, and this is more of a ecology question than an economic question. I've heard that to produce Bitcoin uses an incredible amount of energy, like more energy than the fossil fuel industry is utilizing. And all of a sudden, that really took the wind out of my sails. I thought, okay, I made 200% on this little investment in Bitcoin, but what did I do to the environment? So I'm not so excited about it. I don't know what that means in the big picture, but I think we're going to have to really look at that carefully. Making Bitcoin takes too much energy.
Right.
So
that's a really interesting point.
That's a good question.
Yeah. So going back to interest rates, just knowing the demographics of Outer Sunset and Outer Parkside, there are a lot of young professionals that live in the neighborhood that have never really lived as adults with normal interest rates. So what advice do you have for those folks who will eventually face normal interest rates, for lack of a better term?
Right. Well, you might not like my first answer because I'm kind of repeating myself in a way, but I suggest finding a good financial planner. That would be step number one. But then you have to understand that interest rates obviously affect what happens to your savings and also what happens to borrowing. And so you need to understand the relationship of those two factors. So in a low interest rate environment, obviously it makes it possible to buy real estate. And so that's a big part of our plan. Some of our clients want to either own their residence, which in this part of the world is not so simple. It's very expensive. And also some people want to buy investment real estate, and we have to give advice about that. But low interest rates make it possible to get incredible leverage to buy real estate. It also means that you're getting no return on your savings unless it's invested, which has risk. So again, the big picture is you need to have a really well-diversified financial situation. You need to have emergency money that's not earning anything. You need to have, maybe I would recommend people with short-term funds for their emergency money. That's one giveaway I'll just mention right now. If you can find a short-term bond fund out there, there's plenty. That's a good way to keep your emergency money from earning zero interest. But then, let's see, I kind of forgot the question actually.
Yeah, it's okay. We're talking about young adults getting ready for the eventual rise of interest rates because lots of folks in their 20s and 30s haven't really operated as adults with that.
Eventual rise of interest rates.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is, again, the rise of interest rates, like everything else, it's all interrelated. So right now, we are struggling as advisors to help our clients, especially older clients, get income on their investments. Younger people, that's not a concern. But at the same time, if you're saving for a down payment, you want to get some interest on your money. So the eventual rise of interest rates will mean that you can get a higher rate of return on your savings, but then it's going to be more difficult to get the leverage you need to buy property. So again, these are complicated decisions and every person's situation is different. So if you have a blueprint and you have someone who can run projections for you using all this great software which is out there, you always can find a way to accomplish your goal, but you have to, measure these different things. What can you get on your savings and what are you going to have to pay to borrow money? Everything is related. So I can't really give you a simple answer to that question. Something else everyone should be concerned about, and again, I think it's important to have a blueprint, and then everything kind of adjusts as you go through time. You just adjust. You have a goal out there, but you have to adjust the tools you're using to get there. And depending on interest rates, you might have to adjust. You might have to restructure your debt, or you might have to restructure your savings, and sometimes your investments because of the changes in interest rates. I mean, it is so there's no simple answer to that question.
Well, I'm not surprised. So I want to flip this around. The Outer Avenues also has a lot of retirees who probably feel like they've been forced into risky equities to get some kind of return on their savings. What should they be doing or thinking about in preparation of the eventual rise of rates?
Right, well I like that question because there's been this myth. Well, first of all, let me say that I'm not a big fan of experts, so-called experts who write articles about various forms of media, whether it's newspapers, magazines, or online, because they're giving advice to a mass audience. Financial planning is very personal, and every person's situation is completely different. So one myth that's been around for a long time, you see it constantly still today, even 401k plans are designed to be this way. As you get closer to retirement, you find the experts recommend moving money out of equities into fixed income investments, right? So as you get older, because you have less time to recover, theoretically you should have less money in equities and more money in fixed income, which is safer. But I believe that's a myth, because first of all, people are living much longer, and so a 65-year-old might have 40 years to make the money last. You can't move all your money into fixed income investments in a low interest rate environment when you're 65 years old, because guess what? You'll run out of money by the time you're 90.
Right.
So I really think that portfolio doesn't change that much. It depends on the investor's risk tolerance. And if you have a high tolerance for risk and you don't mind seeing your account go up and down, you should remain invested, fully invested in the market. That is maybe, 60, 70, even 80%. And when you get older, maybe cut back a little bit. But the idea of moving money out of the stock market into safer investments when you're older, generally speaking, doesn't really work. Not in this kind of environment, because you can't make enough money on the safe side to make the money last as long as it needs to. So again, each individual has to have a portfolio designed for their particular situation. I don't think age is that big of a deal in this case. It has some effect, but it's not as radical of a difference as a lot of people may think.
Okay, understood. Well, Nathen, I really appreciate your time and expertise, and I'm sure the neighborhood does as well. If you'd like to get a hold of Nathen, I will leave his contact information below. Thanks for tuning in to Outer Avenues TV, and we'll see you again soon.